I know I've been a bit negative recently, so here's a big splosh of positivity about Paladins. And the huge thing that is really positive for me in this OB44 is the survival mode. If you didn't know, because it actually hasn't been put in yet, it's being patched in right now. Survival mode is being added to the realm, and it's basically a 5v5 permadeath, so once you die in a round, you are out, style elimination rounds where you fight over a small area in the middle as deadly fog comes in from the edge of the map and slowly traps you into the center where you brawl it out. Now this has been seen in other games and is sort of styled around the sort of elimination modes of games like CSGO and sort of mixed up a bit, but there's actually a MOBA style game that's out now called Battle Right that I really enjoyed because it had a very similar system. You had 5v5, and part of it was that the rounds were so quick, and it had the same mechanic where after a certain amount of time the map would get smaller and you'd have to fight out in the middle, and really it just makes a really high octane game mode. And it's the same with this survival mode in Paladins. It was the thing that I was really looking forward to in Season 1. And although it isn't perfect, obviously, it's going to be pushed down, it's going to be probably a bit imbalanced, there's going to be characters that are better than others in this mode just because of how they synergize with the map design, but hell is this mode fun. And pretty much all the time I spent on the PTS was playing in the survival mode, and if I got the normal mode I was actually a little bit disappointed. I thought, I want to go back to the survival mode, I just want to chill out and have some fun and shoot up some really quick games. I think the survival mode actually had the potential to be sort of a standalone game mode that people would play instead of the normal mode and maybe attract people that wouldn't usually play a sort of full-based round mode in a shooter game. Maybe both Paladins and other shooter games that had rounds went on too long for them. Maybe they needed something a bit quicker. And for people that don't have a lot of time and they just want to get in some quick games, it could very well be an option. And I guess the big thing as well, it's still Paladins, you still have all the champions and all the abilities and all the things that we do love about the game, just set in a different scene, and I do think it really works well. And both of the maps are great in both their design, especially the Snowfall Junction. It looks gorgeous, and there's loads of little details inside of frozen vegetables and things. And also, the way the maps are designed, they've got loads of levels, they've got little areas to hide in, and it just really works. And it kind of is seen in the new maps that are in the test modes that they're putting out, like the new Frog Isle and things like that. There's more areas to hide in, there's more verticality to the maps, and we do have more champions that sort of can climb and have verticality. I know Maeve might be a trigger word, but she does sort of benefit from that, having the vertical movement, and characters like Drogos and Roxas and people like that. I honestly think that it's quite a funny mechanic as well, just to have that fog coming from the outside, and it does work. It works in games like H1Z1 as just like this extra element of danger that you have to avoid. And there is a bit of meta about throwing people into the fog, which is hilarious in its own right. And personally, watching a Torvald knock everybody off a point into that fog and watch them all die is pretty hilarious. My hope is that there'll be more maps added and it'll be expanded, and in some ways the maps are probably easier to design because they've got a bit of a simpler sort of thought to them. You sort of have just you've got a one way to the center basically to try and fight it out in the middle. Anyway, I'm just going to give some tips on what I think players do wrong in the survivor mode so far, what we saw in the PTS. A lot of players basically just ran to the center straight away, and the fog doesn't come in for quite a while. So you don't need to be in the center, and the center point in both of the modes is below the levels of basically other cover. And what that means is that the other player on those levels of cover are harder to hit for you because you can't really fire up to them unless you're a pip that's firing a projectile that arcs down. You're gonna struggle to hit those enemies whilst they're able to get away, get into cover behind where you're basically able to fire up to with your line of sight. And often teams win by firing down onto a team that just sits on the point the whole time. Obviously, if you have a Ruckus, and I think the Ruckus card, legendary card, works with the point in the survival mode, basically the 60% damage reduction over the 30% you get normally, as I think there is actually a point. The point doesn't actually do anything apart from work with Ruckus. I think that's all that it's there for, and just to be just a circle that you finish the game on. Another good tip is that it's almost like herding cats. The voice command system sort of works better here because you can spam either left middle, or right, because there's less way to go. And I think the way to win these modes is to stick together and go as a group and come around and then try and get the high ground, try and pick people off, and then as a group try and move into the point as the fog comes in. And I think there's actually like a stage in the map if two of the teams are basically in that sort of stalemate as they're trying to pick each other off, then the fog comes and it forces everybody to the middle and it gets a bit more messy. But my tip is just basically stay as a group, go around together, don't split up too much, because if you get caught out solo, it's very easy to die. The map's quite small, and there's not as much area for you to get away, even if you are a really highly mobile champion. Another tip is there's not very long that you have in the spawn room, so make sure you actually buy some items pretty quickly. And also it does seem that regular lineups like a tank, healer, damage dealer, and flankers does pretty much work out in this mode too. Having a tank just gives you that survivability, having a healer gives you that survivability as well, and generally it works the same way. So at the moment, until the meta might change and sort of shift as we have the survival mode out more, maybe we'll see some really weird lineups of flankers that go against each other. But I think that at the core, like, tanks counter flankers, healers sort of just basically support, and flankers go against healers and damage dealers take out tanks. So there's still the sort of circle and paper, scissors, rock that kind of exists with champions. Like, it's not totally there, but there's still the main balance of paladins in the game. So bear that in mind when you're picking your champions, and you might make your team angry if you pick up just all damage dealers, so just be warned. Also, I think sometimes you do have to literally just brave it in the fog, as you can escape from enemies that just decide not to follow you if they're on low health, and you might be able to get away and come back in again. Especially if you're a lower health pool champion, it's going to do less to you because it's percentage based damage. So if you're a tank caught out in the storm, then you're in trouble. But if you're a mave stuck in the storm, you're not in as much trouble, but you're still losing your health at a pretty rapid rate. So anyway, that's my positivity. I haven't mentioned the accursed E word that we don't mention anymore. And this is 100% positive, folks. Positive thinking. Like, I don't like being negative, but I just want to be honest with people. And that's basically my philosophy. Just be honest and come out with what I think's wrong or right. And this time round, you've already heard my thoughts on it. It isn't the end of the world. There are some bright things about Paladins, and things can change. Anyway, I'm sure you'll be starting to play as survival mode as this video comes out, so be sure to let me know what you think about it after you've tried it, and what your thoughts are seeing the footage that I've got in my video. And also probably a lot of the streamers that you've been watching, and other YouTubers as well playing it, because I think everybody pretty much loves it, so, and I do too. Anyway, if you enjoyed my video, like. If you want to see more, subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Joshino.